Welcome to this lesson, and this is History from 3. The final immigrants that we are going to look at, those who migrated into Central Africa, are the Ndebele. Remember, we started with the Yao, then the Lomwe, then the Ngoni, who were divided into two parts, the Zwangendawa or Jere Ngoni and the Maseko Ngoni. And finally now we are going to look at the Ndebele as immigrants into Central Africa. So in this part, we're going to see how the Ndebele migrated, especially into Zimbabwe, because that's where today we have the Ndebele. We're going to look at the organization, how they were organized politically, even the impact. What impact did they bring into the place where they settled? So it is really another good part that we are going to see how the Ndebele migrated from where they were up to Zimbabwe, their final place, and who read them. So again, it is really another good part that we are going to conclude this first topic in Form 3. So let's be together in this wonderful topic. So let's be together in this lesson. So let us proceed with the Ndebele. We have looked at a number of the groups of the Ngoni. We have looked at the Jere Ngoni as well as the Maseko Ngoni. So this time around, we are proceeding with the Ndebele because the Ndebele were also one of the tribes that migrated into Central Africa. So we are going to look at Mzilikazi and the Ndebele. Remember, we mentioned Mzilikazi somewhere else. If you can go back, you remember we mentioned that the Nyamazana. Remember, when the Jere Ngoni entered the Rozwe, that is in Zimbabwe, then they left Nyamazana there, and Nyamazana later on was incorporated into the groups of the Ndebele. Not only that, but Nyamazana also got married to Mzilikazi. So the Kumalo chiefdom was led by Mzilikazi, and he was son of Mashobane. So the group earned some name or earned the name Ndebele or Matebele on transit to their new home in Zimbabwe. So these people, they are not originally called the Ndebele. No, they were the Kumalo. So take note of that. The Ndebele are the Kumalo. So these ones, they were led by Mzilikazi, who was their leader. But in transit, that's where they got the name Ndebele or Matebele. So after death of Dingiswayo, remember during that Mfekane, 1817, Mzilikazi's Kumalo clan was incorporated again into the Zulu chiefdoms, just as it was with the Mtetwa, if you can remember that. After Dingiswayo, the leader of the Mtetwa, was killed, then the Mtetwa were incorporated also into the Zulu. So Mzilikazi, he became the Shaka's trusted general and Induna, to the extent that Shaka allowed him full control of a section of the Zulu kingdom. So look at this, that Mzilikazi was much trusted by Shaka Zulu. So with that, then Shaka, he trusted him, that is Mzilikazi, to say, right, you control a bigger section of the Zulu. So being a trusted Induna, sometimes he would also be sent to carry out the raids on the neighboring countries, because now, we have mentioned about the Ngoni. We said they fight others. Their spirit is to fight others and incorporate them into their society. Now, when Shaka Zulu incorporated the Kumalo, what happened was that he trusted so much Mzilikazi in such a way that he was letting him loose to go and conquer others and bring maybe the tribute to him. So the booty or the goods captured in war would be now surrendered to Shaka, who in turn rewarded his generals or his generals. So what was happening was that after you are sent by Shaka, wherever you have gone, then there you are supposed to grab some of these things like the cattle or food and bring them all to Shaka. So Shaka was there to reward later on, to say, all right, thank you, a good servant, now I give you this portion. Therefore, in 1822, the Kumalo escaped northwards across the Drakensberg mountains and settled at a place which was called Ekpumuren, which means the resting place, which means the resting place. So Ekpumuren means the resting place. They kept on raiding the Swana, the Soto, in the process, and destroying the village and even the livestock. Now, what made these people to now fled northwards? Because we have just started to say now they escaped, or the Kumalo and Mzilikazi escaped northwards. What happened was that during one of the raids, when Mzilikazi was sent to destroy or to invade others or to raid others, then he kept all the cattle that he took from there without surrendering it to Shaka. Then Shaka, he sent his men to say, all right, go and ask Mzilikazi why he has done that. Then Mzilikazi, then he killed all those men. Then Shaka later became furious and attacked the Kumalo. So that's when we are saying now the Kumalo in 1822, they escaped northwards across the Drakensberg mountain and settled at a place which was called Ekpumureni, meaning the place of the resting place. So there we are saying that when they settled there, they attacked the Tswana and the Soto. So they destroyed the villages and even the livestock. So it was here, there at a resting place, that the Kumal warriors, they were nicknamed the Ndebele or Matebele, which means men of long shields, men of long shields. So Ndebele or Matebele, it means men of long shields, but we know that themselves, they were the Kumalo. But at Ekpumuren there were some challenges. There. So those challenges made them, discouraged them to settle there permanently. So some of the challenges were constant threats from the Pedi. So there were a certain tribe known as the Pedi. So they were a threat to the Ndebele or the Kumal. And poor grazing land for the livestock. You know, the Ngoni, they are usually the pastoralists. They keep a lot of cattle. So at Ekpumuren, they did not have that good grazing land. And also the need to keep distance from Shaka, because his territory was still closed. So at Ekpumuren, the place itself, it was just near Shaka. So looking at the behavior of Shaka Zulu, then they could they had that fear to say maybe this Shaka will come and attack us one day. Therefore, they abandoned Ekpumuren and they settled at a place known as Msasandela in 1826, where they raided the Tswana still and the Mangwato. they raided all those people. So it was in 1829 that the Mzilikas, he met with Robert Moffat, who was running the Kurumani mission station. Remember Robert Moffat, he was, we are going also to mention him sometime later when we look at the missionaries. Yeah, so he met with this missionary, Robert Moffat, at the at Kurumani there. So the two, then they became friends. They became good friends, and later Mzilikas and his group left for Mosega Bay for a permanent settlement. Basically, when they reached this Mosega, it proved to be insecure within the Ndebele for a number of reasons. So we're saying that when he met with Robert Moffat, he thought, no, I'm going to settle, or we are going to settle permanently at Mosega. But then when they reached there, they found that that place was not good at all. So what were the reasons why Mosega was not good? Number one was that there are numerous tribes such as the Grigwa, the Kora, they united in order to attack the Ndebele. So the place was not good. And again, Dingane, the one who became the Zulu leader after the death of Shaka Zulu, constantly also attacked, posed a threat to the Ndebele at Mosega Bay. And not only that, the Boers, led by Hendrik Potgieter, they attacked the Ndebele in 1837, while the Ndebele were away on the hunting expedition. So why did the Boers attack under Potgieter? Why did they attack the Ndebele village at Mosega? The reason was that the Ndebele had previously attacked and taken away the Boers' cattle and wagons. So it was like a revenge. The Boers were making a revenge, whereby the Ndebele were the first to attack and steal the cattle and the wagons of the Boers. And also at Mosega, there was lack of pasture land. The pasture land, just like at the Msakandela or at the Pumureni, then the pasture land was not good at all. So let's look at the social political organization of the Ndebele. Now, we have to know that after they left the Mosega, that's when they entered the land of the Mashona land. Then later on, they proceeded to the Roswy. Then they defeated all those people and they settled in their own place and named it the Ndebele land. That is in Zimbabwe. Now, what was the organization? The Ndebele political organization or system was highly centralized. So just as it was with the Jere and the Maseko, the Ndebele as well, they were also highly centralized. That is, they had the central authority in their in the running of the politics. So the king himself was was on top of the political hierarchy. Just as we looked at the Ngoni, they had the king as the paramount, and his position or authority was unchallenged. It was unchallenged, just the same with the Ngoni. So he was both the commander-in-chief of the army and the chief judge. It should also remind you of the Ngoni. So he received tribute from the conquered people. So all the conquered people, or such as the Shona, they were paying the tribute to the Ndebele. And the Ndebele, they created a military state. The Ngoni still, we mentioned to say their state was a military state. So they had a well-organized army with military towns around Inyati. That was the capital city of the Ndebele. So they created those military states and they organized their army. And they had the military towns. So take note of that. We mentioned that the Ngoni did not have the military towns. So all men were soldiers. They were called in time of need. So each military town was under the control of a regimental chief or Ibuto. Ibuto was the controller of the military town. So this one, the Ibuto, was usually the king's brother or the king's relative. So the military towns, were further arranged in 4 provinces, which were under the senior indunas. So those towns, military towns, were also arranged in provinces. So the soldiers, they lived in military towns, but during their retirement, they went into the villages. So that was what was happening. The soldiers were like all the time in the barracks. So the military groups were known as the Amabuto. Amabuto were the military groups. So Ibuto was the leader of the military town. So remember that one, Ibuto and Amabuto. So they are different there. Ibuto, the leader, and Amabuto, the groups. So the Ndebele, just like the Ngoni, they also practiced regimental system. Regimental system, which means soldiers were grouped according to their ages. So the soldiers were put according to their ages, just as we looked at the Ngoni. So all boys, the boys up to 21 years old, they formed what was called Ribandla or Amajaha. So men, they formed the core defense. The core defense, that is the main center or the center of the defense. It was not for boys, but it was for men. So the men, they formed the center of the Ndebele defense. So on retirement, we are saying that the soldiers, they would return to the village and engage in the farm work. However, even after retirement, they could also be called for service in times of war. So retirement was there, but when someone retires, he could go to the village and engage in farming work. But later on, when there is the need for the service, those retired officers, they were even called back to war. So the Ndebele depended very much on the army. So you have to take note of this one again to say the Ndebele, their survival depended on the army. So apart from defense, the army was also important for the economy of the state. So the economy of the army, it depended also on of the Ndebele. The economy depended on the army. So for the raids, they were raiding others. The army, they could bring back the cattle, food, and other items. So that's why we are saying that the army, it was really important for the economy because they were there to raid others. So when they raid others, they could bring the cattle, the food, and many other items. So the conquered chiefs, again, they paid tribute to the Ndebele king in form of cattle. So they were doing such things. So failure to do so, those captured people or those defeated people, failure to pay the tribute was regarded as a rebellion, and it was met with stiff punishment. And socially, the Ndebele themselves, the social structure was based on the class system. When we go to Form 4, we are going to look at the class system as well. When we look at the communist revolution in Russia, we are going to understand the class system in that way. And again, when we will be also looking at the decolonization of India, we'll also look at the class system or the caste system that was there. But the Ndebele also, they practiced the class system. So what was it like? So it's a social strata. It fell into three levels. So they were into three levels. That is the classes, three classes. So those three levels were based on origins and the history of the nation. So the first were the Zansi or Abezansi, the Zansi. So these ones, they were the descendants of the Kumalo clan, or the descendants, the original Kumalo clan. They were the Zansi. Now, and these ones also, they included those descendants of Zwangendawa, Zwangendawa's woman general. Remember, we talked of a woman general who married Nzirikazi, that is the Nyamazana. So Indunas, as well as the army generals, they also were into this class. And the second one was the Enla, or the Abenla. So the Abenla were another class. So this class, it comprised of the people captured on their way from the Zululand. So all those that were captured along the way, they were called the Enla or Abenla, while the originals were called the Zansi or Abezansi. So they included the tribal groups such as the Tswana. There were also the Soto, as well as the Venda. So those ones were some of the people who were captured as they were in transit from the Zululand. They were numerically larger than the Zansi. So just as we mentioned when we were looking at the Ngoni, we said that even the Zansi of the Ngoni, the Zanzi, those ones, they were few than the captured people. So it also applied to the Ndebele, whereby the captured people were always larger in number than the originals. So the Enla were larger than the Zansi or Abezansi. And the other group, the third group, we said that there were three. There were three groups or classes. The last one was the Holi or Amaholi. So the term Amaholi means our slaves. It means our slaves. So this one, it referred to the newly conquered local people. So Amaholi were the local people, the indigenous people whom the Ndebele found, like in Zimbabwe. So it included the local people such as the Karanga, the Rozwi, as well as the Shona. They were the ones whom the Ndebele found in Zimbabwe. So they conquered them and they turned them into Amaholi, or their slaves, whereby they were capturing or raiding them now and again. So this class constituted of the largest population of the Ndebele society. So you have to take note of this, that when the Ndebele entered Zimbabwe, they conquered many people there. And those people who were conquered, they told them to say, now you are part of us. But you are part of us in the class of slaves. You are our group, but the class of slaves. So they were like also the Ndebele society, but they were the slaves. That is the Shona, Karanga, and the Rozwi. So despite the class differences, certain factors acted as a source of unity. So they were still united due to certain factors in that Ndebele society. So, for example, we talk of the assimilated people. They were encouraged to speak Sindebele. They were encouraged to speak Ndebele language, the language of the Ndebele, Sindebele. So all those captured people, they were encouraged to do that. So in this way, they were able to preserve their language. So unlike the Ngoni, that is where the difference between the Ndebele and the Ngoni is. The Ngoni did not force the people to speak their language. As a result, all those who were captured, they were left free to continue speaking their languages. So with that, then it meant that the Ngoni, they lost their language. That's why even today we have so many people who claim to be the Ngoni, who are the Ngoni, yes, but look at the language. They cannot speak the Zulu language. No, most of them they can. Very few they can manage to do that. But they say we are the Ngoni. So they lost that way. They lost that way. So the Ndebele were very clever. They knew that all other groups were many than them. They were the Ndebele were few. The original Kumalo, they were few. So, and if they could just let everyone speak his language, they could also be defeated in that way. So they also forced those captured people to say, you are with us, but you are going to be speaking Ndebele here. So the Ngoni did not do that when they came to Malawi. Hence, they lost their language. Most of the people in Mzimba, the Ngoni, they speak Tumbuka. Most of the Ngoni in the Zancheu, they speak Chichewa, which means they were defeated in terms of language. So the assimilated people also, they were involved in the military. So those were the uniting factor. And not only that, the king also married from different tribes. So the king married from different tribes, and the king's wives, they were used as the spies or informants who kept the full the information, who kept the king to be informed about the local affairs outside or inside the state. So we are saying that the king married from any tribe that he wished to. But he was doing that so that each tribe should know that they were related to the king. And that wife was like an informant to say, is there anyone who is like planning the rebellion? Then they could inform the king wherever he is. So on the other hand, it was only the king that was allowed to marry from others. But the marriage between the Zansi and the other classes was restricted. So the original Kuma, they are not allowed to marry any other, and even any other tribe was not allowed to marry the Kuma. So they did that in order to maintain the purity of the Ndebele ethnic group. So why did they restrict marriage? In order to maintain the purity of the Kumalo clan. So let's look at the decline of the Ndebele state. The Ndebele state came into decline. So number one was the succession disputes. After the death of Mzilikazi in 1868, his body, it lay in state for almost 2 months before it was buried at the Ntombana in Matopo Hills. So why was it like that? During that time, there was a civil war that broke out. So what happened was that there was that succession crisis. So what happened was that when there was, or during that time of succession crisis, there was the Nombante who acted as a regent until 2 years later, when Lobengula succeeded his father in 1870. This somehow it weakened the Ndebele power. So we see to it, after the death of the leader, then there was just a temporary leader, a regent. But that time there was that succession dispute to say some people, they did not want Mzilika's son to take over. They wanted to put on other people. Then there was that civil war that broke out. And the other one, the other factor for the decline was the Lobengula's weaknesses. So he was a weak leader. So Lobengula was not as strong as his father Mzilikazi. So he made treaties with the Europeans, which resulted into several Europeans flocking into Ndebele land. So that one, it had the disastrous effect. So Lobengula, he came into contact he allowed the Europeans to come into his area, and with that, it had a number of negative effects. Number one, it led to loss of ivory trade monopoly. So when the Europeans came inside, then they started to indulge or to sell, to indulge in the ivory trade with anyone. And again, disruption of tribute from the conquered chiefs, such as the Shona. So the Shona, they grew arrogant due to the presence of the Europeans, who were considered as protectors of the Shona. So at one point in time, we are going to mention this one in subsequent topics, whereby when the Europeans came, like the missionaries or the British, when they came there to occupy the area, they were using the Shona to their side. And the Shona, remember, they were taken as the slaves of the Ndebele. But the coming of the whites, then the Shona, they grew arrogant. They were not even loyal to the Ndebele. As a result, the Ndebele, they lost that authority. And some European missionaries in this territory, such as the John Smith Moffat, acted as an agent of colonization. So when John Smith Moffat came under the London Mission Society, then it happened that he informed the British, other British, to come and colonize that area. Hence, the Ndebele, they lost that authority during colonization. The Indunas, who had converted to Christianity, became disloyal to the king. So there were some of the Indunas who were converted to Christianity, and therefore they regarded that our leader is evil. So we are going to be together with the whites. Then they became disloyal to the king. So you see to it that all these factors, they are because of the coming of the whites, it led to a number of effects in the Ndebele land. In short, the Ndebele, they lost authority when the Europeans, they came in. So all in all, who allowed the coming of the whites, it was Lobengula. So it was his weakness, whereby he was just signing the treaties anyhow, and those things, they led to his the decline of his kingdom. However, we have to look at the impact. What was the impact of the Ndebele, the Kumalo, on the local people, that is, the local inhabitants? Number one, they suppressed other people's culture in Zimbabwe. So the customs of assimilated people, such as the Soto, the Swana, the Ngwato, the Shona, the Roswi, all those, they were changed. So they changed the culture of other people when they came. So these people who were captured, they adopted the Ndebele lifestyle, customs, and language. We have just talked about this. So that was a big impact on the local people. The Ndebele lifestyle, the custom, as well as the language. Local people were forced to adopt those things. And the raids themselves, the raids they conducted created instability in the region. So we said the Ndebele were a military state. Their economy depended on the army. So the army was raiding other people now and again. So with that, then they created instability because other people, they were living in fear of the Ndebele. When they have planted during the time of harvest, they were just in fear. Maybe the Ndebele are coming anytime. So the arrival of the Ndebele in that region ended an era of peaceful development in Zimbabwe. So there was no peaceful development among the Roswi, the Shona, and the others, or the Karanga. So they ended that peaceful development period. And also, they encouraged unity among different tribal groupings. So that is another maybe impact, or we can take it into the positive side. So the Ndebele, the use of the Ndebele language, that one created a notion of national unity among the people. They were united, and even that centralized political system of government, it can work properly when people, they know that they are united, or they have a certain thing that unite them. So that was to the positive side. And again, they contributed to colonization of some parts of Central Africa. So it was the Lobengula's treaty making with the Europeans that brought immediate colonization of Zimbabwe by the British. So the coming of the British, it was by Lobengula's agreement, the treaty. We are going to look at some of them, the treaties, very, very soon. We'll be looking at how the British occupied Zimbabwe. So the British, they first occupied Zimbabwe. So after they occupied Zimbabwe, then Lewanika was forced to seek the British protection, partly for fear of the Ndebele warriors, which led to the British occupation of northeastern Rhodesia, which we call Eastern Zambia. So we see to it that after the whites, they came into Ndebele land and they occupied that one. Then the British still more extended their influence into Zambia and later into Nyasaland. So it was started with the Lobengula's agreement with the whites to come into his area. Then later on, it was occupied by the British. Then the British, they extended their influence into Central Africa, other Central African countries like Zambia as well as the Nyasaland. So to this far, we have come to the end of this topic, that is the 19th and 20th centuries immigrants into Central Africa. So we started with the Yao and the Ndebele, and later on we joined with the Ngoni, which were divided into two, the Maseko Ngoni as well as the Jere Ngoni, the Ngoni of Zwangendao. And later on, we have concluded this part with the Ndebele, who were the Kumal. So we have looked at all these people, how they migrated and where they settled. And furthermore, we have looked at the impact. What was the impact of the Yao on the local people, the Lomwe on the local people, the Jere and the Maseko Ngoni, what was their impact? And finally, we have also looked at the impact, again, of the Ndebele on the local people. That is an important element that you have to be taking note, the impact of something on others. So that's what we emphasize much, again, in history. So here, we have the question. I have the questions for you. So these are for the review of this part. That is, we are looking at the Ngoni and the Ndebele, the Ngoni and the Ndebele. So you are going to look at to handle these questions, all of them. Look at them, read them clearly, understand the question, and link to what you have learned so far. So they are just very simple and straightforward questions. So go through them peacefully, quietly, and you will see that they are very, very simple questions. Yeah, so they are not much. They are not much. There are only 10 questions. Only 10 questions where you are going to look at them. Now they are straightforward. These are structured questions where you just answer or explain in brief these questions. So what I need you to do is this. I need you to write or answer these questions on a piece of paper. Write them clearly using a clear pen. After you answer them, then what you have to do is this. You take a form and capture take like a photo, and that photo, make sure that it is clear, very clear. Then you send those photos to me. So that photo, I'll also download it and mark. I'll mark, and do again the capturing and send you back the result or the feedback of your answers. So in so doing, I will know that you are following this work. I will know that you are following this work, then it will be good. And again, if you have any questions, maybe there's somewhere where the explanation is not clear to you, you can ask your teacher, or else you can write, you can include that one to me. So after you do that, you send it onto the WhatsApp number. The WhatsApp number that appears on your screen, or if you are privileged to have the email, you can just send me via the email again that appears on your screen. So in such a way, I'll also, in any way, I will respond and I will give you the feedback on anything. So that is it. Don't forget to work on this one. So study hard, work hard, so that things work out for you. So next time we will be looking at this part, that is the growth of trade in pre-colonial East and Central Africa. The growth of trade in pre-colonial East and Central Africa. Before colonization, there was trade in Africa, in East and Central Africa. What was that trade? So we are going to look at that. And who were the traders, or the trade partners? So who were the trade partners? We are going to look at that. So here we are going to look at the Portuguese factor. The Portuguese factor. So this is a very, very important or good lesson. It is very brief, but it is a very, very good topic that you are going to enjoy again. So watch out for that one. Get that a copy of that topic so that you progress well in your history. So one step at a time, one step in a time, it will make you cover a million miles. So one topic at a time, it will also assist you. So much as we have done with the previous one, now watch out, get the next copy of this Portuguese factor. It will be, or it is a wonderful topic as well, whereby it has also been well explained, all the factors following the curriculum, that is the syllabus according to the Malawi curriculum. So until next time, thank you so much.
Simutaya nthawi yanu kufunafuna maphunziro, muzakhala wotumidwa moyo wanu wonse. Ngati simuphunzira, anthu azingokutumani. Ajala kalime, ajala kuchwe manyazi, ajala katende yanti, ndipo anthu ophunzira wandu wotuma so kwambiri. Ndiye ngati simuphunzira, skulu akuyikirani apa, mukhala otumidwa.